really, when you look at Boris Johnson's premiership, can we really, in all honesty, be surprised that Boris Johnson is just, well, if you thought Theresa May was the worst prime minister in history, well, congratulations, Theresa. We're going to have to take that award from you, which I'm sure she's probably very pleased about, because we're going to have to give it to Boris. Because not only is Boris, the worst prime minister in history, he has presided over complete and utter, national disasters, just one after another, and racked up a series of U-turns that haven't been seen for decades. He's averaged a U-turn at almost one a month, which for a government is absolutely unbelievable. But there you go. And this shouldn't surprise anyone, because we saw what he was like as a foreign secretary. He was just a complete disaster. You may go back to when he was mayor of London. And if you properly examine what he was doing as mayor of London, he was a complete disaster. He just let other people do stuff and then take credit for it. The big Boris moment for Boris was when he got to do his 2012 Olympic speech. That was the big moment for him. And again, the Olympics weren't organised by him, they were organised by someone else. Boris had nothing to do with the Olympics in any way, shape or form. But it gave him a stage on which to perform and be the hype man that he is. And Boris Johnson is essentially that. He's a hype man, but he has no policies and he's got no ideas. This is why he can't sack Dominic Cummings, because a man with no ideas doesn't sack the man who has them all. And we're going to get onto this, because I think this article in The Guardian also just sums up not only Boris Johnson and how bad his premiership actually is, but we get to see in this article what Boris Johnson's true nemesis really is. It's deadlines. So this comes from The Guardian, and it's The Guardian's view on Brexit deadlines. Boris Johnson's true nemesis. So, Boris Johnson's government is too often caught unawares by events that were not only predictable, but scheduled. The start of a new school term has been a feature of autumns for a lot longer than Gavin Williamson has been the Education Secretary. Yet, arrangements for keeping classrooms safe from COVID-19 are still uncertain. Ministers cannot answer a question as simple as whether masks should be worn, as whether the mess over exam results guidance issued one day is contradicted by the next. The pattern is set by the Prime Minister. He deals in grand ambitions, not plans for their realisation. When things go wrong, he shifts the blame, as he did on Wednesday, when he shrugged at a mutant algorithm and not a ministerial incompetence that was the true fault over the grading fiasco. The top civil servant at the Education Department is being ousted. The Secretary of State is not. The problem is even most extreme in the realisation of Brexit. Every stage of the UK's uncoupling from the EU has been mapped out by treaty, including the expiry of the transition agreements at the end of this year. By then, a free trade deal is supposed to have been negotiated and ratified. This is getting harder and harder with each passing week. The impediment is British reluctance to recognise what is realistically available, or to understand the imbalances of power in negotiations between a lone country and a continental trading bloc. In June, the Prime Minister said that he could see no reason why a broad agreement might not be reached by July, but there was a reason, and he was it. Mr. Johnson has not paid close enough attention, made choices, or given his negotiators bandwidth for compromise. The UK still demands pristine sovereignty with no obligation to align its standards with EU markets, plus a right to subsidise domestic industries to a degree not to permit under Brussels rules. There we go. The EU will not grant privileged market access on those terms, because doing so would undermine its own industries. Eurosceptic hardliners say that they would prefer no deal to any obligation to match continental standards. Whether this is a bluff or not is a question that interests EU leaders less and less. They have other things to do. At the instigation of Germany, Brexit has been dropped from the agenda of top-level European meeting next week on the grounds that basically there's nothing new to discuss. Mr. Johnson knows what the options are. They range from close integration to something more distant with tariffs and quotas, and he must choose. But he doesn't. Instead, the government still treats Brexit in the most superficial manner, as if the performance of readiness counts as the real thing. A report that Tony Abbott, a former Australian Prime Minister, might take on a senior trade advisory role is a case in point. Setting aside Mr. Abbott's notorious character, the appointment would be consistent with the myth that common among Brexit supporters that trade deals are conjured into being by swaggering personalities. The reality is that good outcomes in a trade deal are achieved by the application of time, attention to detail, experienced negotiators, and rational appraisal of the other side's interests. The UK government has a deficit on all those metrics. As with the challenge of reopening schools or grading exams never sat, the job does not get any easier with neglect. Leaving everything to the last minute, testing the flexibility of deadlines is a method that might have worked for Mr. Johnson when he was a newspaper columnist, but it is no way to run a government. He operates one day at a time, stumbling from one problem to the next, with no sense of a strategic horizon. Such a man cannot settle the UK's long-term relations with its neighbours, nor, for that matter, should he be trusted with the matter of other tasks required of a Prime Minister. And this is where we are. As usual, we have Brexiteers who are off in fantasy Brexit land, thinking that on New Year's Eve there's going to be this massive chain that they can just go up to and just unhook it from the UK, and then the UK will just go sailing off into the far accountant seas, sailing and skirting the rims of bankruptcy. That's not going to happen. That is not going to happen. And then we've got Boris Johnson, who wants to be Prime Minister, but to use the analogy we used yesterday, he's like a dog chasing an ambulance. He's caught it, but doesn't know what to do now. And you can see this from just his planning. And we mentioned at the beginning that he has no ideas, he has no policy. The very fact here that he hasn't given his negotiator, David Frost, a clear outline of what he actually is meant to do and to go and negotiate, and instead this has reduced David Frost to being a negotiator. What is happening is that Brexit is being once again pushed along ideological grounds, and this hasn't changed since 2016. This has always been Brexit. It was something that was pushed on ideological grounds. It has no policies, it has no laws, it has nothing other than it is just a very vague idea that people can just sum up with words and slogans. And that doesn't help us in the slightest. And we are going to head towards an absolute massive disaster. And we can only, the consequences of which are going to be absolutely dire. And they're going to hurt the people of this country, especially the most the people who voted for Brexit along the grounds thinking and that they were told was going to make their lives somehow better. We can pass our own laws. Well, we could anyway. But what laws are we going to pass? We've got this points-based immigration system. Well, guess what? We could have done that to any non-EU people entering the country that wanted to immigrate here. The more we've said this before, the more and more you look at Brexit and the facts, the less it actually comes and starts to make any form of sense. And on that note, we're going to leave you on. So thank you for watching the video today. Please do like and share the video. It helps the channel out hugely. Also, if you are new to the channel, please do click the subscribe button to see more wonderful videos about British politics and the continuing disaster train that is Brexit, because we're coming up to the crash, and not only just is the crash going to be fantastic to watch, they're just standing there and watching it burn is also going to be pretty fantastic as well. So, please do click that subscribe button. And if you would like to support the channel in another way, down below there are links to my Patreon page as well as a one-off donation link should you like to support that channel in that way. So with that, thank you for watching, and we'll see you all next time.